Hello and welcome to episode 4 of Counterculture TV of Notes from the Underground by Lee Harris. Well, today or now I'm going to just talk a little bit about the underground press of the late 60s, which started in America, and there was a famous San Francisco Oracle, and there were papers in the Village Voice in New York. But in London in the late 60s, in about 66, the first of the underground newspapers, IT or International Times, came into being. And it was very exciting. It was the autumn of 1966, and it was the beginning of flower power, and there were new movements, new ideas, and that's where my personal involvement, I met up with Jack Moore and Jim Haynes, who were part of the group of people who ran IT, and Hoppy and Miles, and it was a wonderful group, and I met up with them, and I was working on the Fletcher file on to get someone off a life sentence in prison. It's a very complicated story, but we did arrest the Home Secretary on the front page of IT at the end of that year, and but IT was for a 24-hour city. It was for new ideas, and it was I was very attracted to IT, and I became a writer for IT and a street seller. I would sell it on tubes, and one Saturday with a group of people from Earl's Court, we walked down to the Portobello Road, and we sold 165 copies of the magazine, and that's what it inspired people to do. And I interviewed the beat poet Michael McClure, called Meet Sculptor, and that was published there. The Israeli poet Dan Omer, and I was a theatre critic. I did many articles on the theatre, and even did the notes for my play, Love Play, which was put on at the Arts Lab. So I had a great association with IT, which was through 67, 68, and also the other great underground newspaper was Oz magazine. And Oz was colourful, full of the new psychedelic paintings, and you could hardly sometimes even read the writing. But there were wonderful things and wonderful artists and nice, it gave a feeling of community to have. And then there was a third one called Friends, and Friends was very good too. Everybody, and in the underground newspapers there came underground comics, especially from America, with Robert Crumb and Gilbert Shelton, and many great new graphic artists who did posters for the Fillmore in San Francisco, and out of that emerged an English underground of comics. And somewhere in the 70s I published an underground comic called Brainstorm, about Chester P. Hackenbush, the psychedelic alchemist. And I got involved in underground comics and helped founded the career of Brian. And so the underground comics and underground newspapers were a large part of communicating to the many people the new ideas. And some were political, because it was a time of balance of strong political views, and quite a lot of anarchy and the new ideas of the new community and the new counterculture. And that's just a little introduction to my interest in the underground press of the late 60s and the underground comics of the 70s. Thank you for listening to this episode of Notes from the Underground.